be fielding, there will be a time for questions and answers. And there is a draft resolution that goes with this, to my understanding, number 34. So at this time, it is my delight to call on National Chief RoseAnne Archibald.
RoseAnne Archibald, Hi everyone, National Chief here doing this presentation this morning. First, I would like to thank the Knowledge Keepers for their opening prayers, the drum for their songs, and all of the sacred items that are connected to this meeting. First, I always want to acknowledge our Creator, the world around us, and our place within it. I'm recording this video in my own home territory of Takutagamo Nation, and I acknowledge all of our home territories. As you can see from this title slide, I'm speaking about strategic direction for the AFN today. There are 23 slides in this deck, so let's get started. First slide, please. Anyone who knows me knows that I am a strategic thinker. And if you feel that I've been successful in my many roles in leadership, it's because I have always had a positive vision based in values along with a clear purpose and mission, as well as well-defined goals. Joy Gum said, "Strategy provides a light at the end of the tunnel." During my travels since being elected, I've had the opportunity to meet many chiefs, and one of them quoted Benjamin Franklin, who said, "If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail." And as you saw during my campaign, my platform document was called Setting Strategic Direction Toward Evolutionary and Positive Change. Rather than reacting to a government agenda or forces outside of our communities, we must drive the processes that will transform the lives of our citizens through strategy and a strong plan that will focus on actions that we will take together on shared goals. Next slide, please. Strategic direction planning started in July 2021 with the National Chief's Office staff, followed up by a strategic direction retreat with the AFN Executive Committee in October. This strategic direction presentation includes 3 separate documents. 1, vision, values, mission, and goal statements. 2, the Healing Path Forward Accord, and 3, healthy boundaries. Next slide, please. My first presentation in section 1 highlights the vision, values, mission, and goal statements that have been developed by the National Chief's Office and presented to the regional chiefs at their October planning session. Regional chiefs asked that they take this back to their regions for further input, and we are awaiting feedback. Next slide, please.
We've just been asked to stop this.
In some traditional cultures, there is a ceremony called the Vision Quest. Certainly, a vision guides us to where we want to be. A vision statement, such as the one I'm about.
Our apologies. We seem to have a technical issue. There is, as you hear National Chief referring to, a presentation that goes with this PowerPoint presentation. We also seem to be having a technical glitch on our production side. We're just clearing all of that up right now. I'm sure you all understand that these are the things that happen with a virtual reality. So for Anchor, understanding that we are reliant on the Zoom chat, could we please have an update?
Sorry, Rochelle.
Yeah, sure. There you are.
Sorry. I wanted to just say that what I understood is that it would be a slide being played just with me in the background. That's what I heard would happen. So I just wanted to make sure that people could follow along with the slides. So if the technical people can run the slides and me in the background, that's actually what I understood would happen.
Great. Thank you so much, National Chief. So encore, we're looking to see how this is going to. So I think what we're going to need to do at this time is go to a resolution while we get this part figured out, National Chief. We appreciate. So we're going to just move on our agenda. We'll come back to this while we get things figured out. So on the agenda, I have resolution number 3. So again, we're going to make them. Today is the heart of what we do here as Chiefs in Assembly is about resolutions. So we're going to move on to resolution number 3, and it is the creation of a National Treaty Commissioner's Office. Its subject is under treaties. It's moved by Chief Matthew Todd Pagan from Pasqua First Nation in Saskatchewan and seconded by Chief Cadmus DeLorme of Cowessess First Nation. So we are looking to have, as we mentioned earlier, everything that we do, whether it's movers, seconders, those wishing to participate, speakers in discussion on resolutions or address questions to our invited guests. We are reliant on the reaction button for your raise your hand. So we're going to look for Chief Matthew Todd Pagan from Pasqua First Nation to please identify themselves as a mover, and their seconder, Chief Cadmus DeLorme of Cowessess First Nation. I'm just going to check in with Encore. If you could please bring up draft resolution number 3, please. I know we're a bit ahead of a schedule. It might just take a minute, but we have patience. It also gives everybody a chance here to get their papers in order. So we are going to draft resolution number 3, creation of a National Treaty Commissioner's Office. Again, we're going to be looking for our mover, Chief Matthew Todd Pagan, and seconder, Chief Cadmus DeLorme. Encore, we are looking for, there we go, draft resolution number 3. As you have it in front of you, I will be reading into the record the French version. Je procéderai maintenant à la version française de ce projet de résolution numéro 3/2021. Just before I do that, just a reminder, if you wish to hear it in English, there is the interpretation button for English and French on the bottom far right of your screen. Donc, c'est le projet de résolution numéro 3/2021, création d'un bureau commissaire national au traité. Le proposeur est Matthew Todd Pagan, chef de Première Nation de Pasqua, Saskatchewan, et le coproposeur est Cadmus DeLorme, chef de Première Nation de Cowessess, Saskatchewan. Pour ces motifs, les chefs en Assemblée demandent au Canada d'orienter son approche concernant l'élaboration d'une législation sur la santé fondée sur la distinction en reconnaissant le droit inhérent des citoyens des Premières Nations à l'autodétermination en ce qui concerne leur santé. Oh, pardon, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I have a double-sided thing, and I just read the beginning of the therefore be it resolved of resolution number 2, because it's on the back of resolution number 3. So my apologies, excusez-moi. Donc, pour le projet de loi numéro 3, pour ces motifs, les chefs en Assemblée affirment que le traité confirme l'autodétermination des Premières Nations en tant que nation étant sur un pied d'égalité avec les États, établissent une relation sacrée entre les Premières Nations et la Couronne et créent des obligations pour les Premières Nations et le Canada. Enjoint à l'Assemblée des Premières Nations, APTN, de faciliter les discussions parmi les nations signataires de traités au Canada en vue d'étudier, de mettre sur pied un bureau national de commissaires au traité pour les nations signataires de traités et qui s'appuiera le mandat de bureau de commissaire aux traités existants et complétera le travail de ces bureaux là où ils sont installés. 3. Demande au gouvernement du Canada d'établir en plein partenariat avec les Premières Nations signataires des traités et avec l'aide de l'APN, un bureau national de commissaires au traité qui supervisera la modernisation des relations découlant des traités de mise en œuvre des obligations de la Couronne issues des traités et la coordination avec d'autres mécanismes pertinents comme le Bureau régional de commissaires aux traités. 4. Enjoint à l'APN de demander au gouvernement du Canada d'établir un mécanisme qui empêche l'adoption de toute loi qui n'est pas conforme aux relations issues des traités et qui ne demande pas la mise en œuvre des obligations internationales issues des traités du Canada envers les Premières Nations. 5. Enjoint à l'APN de demander au gouvernement fédéral, provinciaux, territoriaux de soutenir les Premières Nations dans l'élaboration de leur propre processus d'édification des nations. 6. Enjoint à l'APN de faciliter la pleine participation des nations signataires des traités à la mise sur les pieds d'un Bureau national du commissaire au traité de demander que le consentement préalable, libre, éclairé soit respecté tout au long du processus. 7. Enjoint à l'APN de demander au gouvernement du Canada de s'assurer que tout processus relatif à la mise sur pied ou la mise en œuvre d'un Bureau national du commissaire au traité ne porte pas préjudice aux négociations ou à la mise en œuvre d'initiatives connexes actuellement entreprises par les nations signataires des traités ou des commissaires aux traités déjà en fonction. Enjoint à l'APN de plaider immédiatement en faveur de l'obtention des ressources suffisantes pour soutenir la participation entière et égale des nations signataires des traités à la création d'un Bureau national de commissaires aux traités, y compris au processus de mise sur pied conjointe et de mobilisation. So that is the resolution number 3. Again, my apologies for starting off with the prior resolution. So that's resolution number 3. We're looking for Todd Matthew Pagan to identify yourself as the mover and the seconder, Chief Matthew Delorme. So I'm just going to go over to see if they don't see their hands raised. So again, oh, we got one. Pardon me. I see Proxy Regina Crowchild with your hand raised. So we're looking for a mover and a seconder at this time. And we have Chief Don Miracle. So we'll go first to Chief Regina Crowchild. Can you please unmute Chief Regina, Proxy Regina Crowchild.
Oh, sure, but I'm not move it or send it. I was just going to resolution.
Perfect. Sorry. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. I'll note you down as a speaker. Is that the same for you, Chief Don Miracle? We'll check in with you right now.
Yes, it is. I just wanted to ask for a friendly amendment if there was a mover and seconder to item number 1.
Perfect. Well, we'll get right back to you then. I see Chief Cadmus Delorme is joined us. Chief Delorme, you are listed as a seconder. Are you willing to step up as a mover for this resolution number 3? Please proceed, Chief Delorme.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Good morning, the Assembly, and thanks for the prayer that was rendered and songs. I will move this resolution.
Thank you so much. So that's Chief Cadmus Delorme of Cowessess First Nation, who is now the mover on draft resolution number 3, creation of a National Treaty Commissioner's Office. And as you duly noted, hopefully, Chief Delorme, we will be going back to you because there is already a notation of a friendly amendment. So we are looking for a seconder at this time. So we're putting a call out for a seconder. We have noted that both Regina Crowchild Proxy and Chief Don Miracle wish to speak to this resolution. But we are looking for a seconder for draft resolution number 3. Grand Chief Abraham Benedict, please unmute Grand Chief Abraham Benedict.
Yes, I'll second for the purpose of moving this along in discussion.
Thank you so much, Grand Chief. And Grand Chief, I understand that you are also a proxy. We acknowledge you as Grand Chief, but also you're a proxy for purposes of voting. Can you remind me of which community for our record?
I'm the Grand Chief for the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne, and I haven't given proxy to anybody else.
Okay, my apologies. I got confused from yesterday. Thank you so much. So Grand Chief Benedict of Akwesasne, thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, so to our mover, Chief Cadmus Delorme, at this time, you have up to 5 minutes for any further comments that you wish to make about draft resolution number 3. And if we could please unmute Chief Cadmus Delorme, we'll go to him.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. And again, good morning to the Assembly. I speak in favor of this. I want to mention that in this Crown relationship that Indigenous people have, and I'm Treaty 4, I do want to make sure I respect that there are numerous treaty, numbered treaties and others in this country that we share with the Crown. And one of the challenges that we face when we look for the next 50 years to try and make sure that we lift up, that we strengthen our relationship, is we as Indigenous people, we are persevering. We always have, and we fight. We assert our treaty relationship. And I absolutely love listening to Chief Wilton, to others about treaty. And so we will persevere. Our relationship is with the Crown. And we must understand that the Crown's house, the Crown's governance, who is speaking for us in that circle? Who is making sure that when we are persevering and asserting our spirit and intent and other means to the truth of our treaties, this position, this creation is our voice in that house, and is to make sure that when motions in the Parliament building, when discussions need to happen, that it doesn't get dropped on the bureaucrats. That Section 91 and 92 of the Canadian Constitution is very political. And that's where a lot of our treaties end up today, in the bureaucratic side of things. And so this would go in favor to strengthening the treaty relationship of what this country is built on what Indigenous people have always wanted fulfilled, and we are getting there. So this will strengthen our next 50 years. Madam Chair and everybody else, I just wanted to mention that we now have in this country C-15, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, that the Government of Canada has recognized, and that lifts the floor up to how the respect is being, the relationship with Indigenous people. And this Treaty Commission office is going to strengthen that even more, because we are going to have somebody at a national level that would be our voice. And in conclusion, I just want to mention in Saskatchewan, there is a treaty commissioner. And it is all right. Can it be better? Absolutely. But it's kind of border as it is within the province of Saskatchewan. This national office would strengthen each of the colonial provinces' perspective when it comes to the treaty. And lastly, I just want to mention, if this is approved, the way that it would be implemented is we would direct our AFN chief and the team. There's two options on how to get this to actual fruition: is a order in council or through legislation. An order in council would be the recommended means. Those are the processes on how to get there. But Madam Chair, I'm going to leave my words there. I probably am going to, when I go back on mute, remember I wanted to say something else. But thank you very much for bringing this to the floor. And if there is questions for myself or discussions for amendments, I don't take a full position on this, as this is something that I feel needs discussion as well. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. As you have, we've both noted that there is already a call for a friendly amendment. I will go now over to our seconder, Grand Chief Abraham Benedict, Akwesasne. Grand Chief, any further comment about this draft resolution number 3? And just a gentle reminder to both our seconder and anyone else speaking, we are just for due course, are asking to keep within the 3 minutes for each person. So please, Grand Chief Abraham Benedict.
Segal, and good morning. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm pleased to move the the resolution for Chief Cadamus, and sounds as though he's already willing to make some amendments, so that's good, and it's good to see him as well. Akwesasne is not a treaty holder. We have wampum belts with the Queen, so although the premises are about the same, but I'm pleased to support this and entertain the amendments as necessary. So go.
And thank you so much, Grand Chief Abram, just duly noting that we will be going back to you when we get to that friendly amendment. So we're now going to go to our speakers list. We will go now to Proxy Regina Crowchild. And now we're on to discussion for this draft number 3. Regina?
Yeah, good morning. First of all, I want to thank the spiritual leaders for the prayers this morning, the pipe, and their ceremonies. I guess I have questions on this. First of all, I'd like to know what kind of involvement does an organization like AFN have to do with this? What's their involvement? And because we have in treaties 1 to 11 in our annual assembly, we spoke about having a treaty commission's office, and they were going to develop their own, with Canada. And we looked at in Alberta, in treaties 6, 7, and 8, we had attempted to, at least the government, the Department of Indian Affairs had come to us asking us to establish a treaty commissioner's office for our area. However, we rejected it, or we had not come to any conclusions yet. I shouldn't say we rejected it, but we hadn't resolved that. Simply because treaty commissioner's office was going to be responsible to the Minister of Indian Affairs, to be accountable to Indian Affairs. We wanted a treaty commissioner's office that's totally independent, and that has to be accountable to our peoples as well as to Canada. So we couldn't agree on the mandate of this commissioner's office, proposed commissioner's office. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And who is going to, on this resolution, it says, call on the Government of Canada to establish a National Treaty Commission office in full partnership with Treaty First Nations, facilitated by AFN, that will oversee the modernization of treaty relationships, the implementation of the Crown's treaty obligation in coordination with relevant mechanisms such as a regional commissioner, treaty commissioners. What does that mean? What do they mean by modernization? We already have our treaties with the Crown. We know what they are, what our peoples agreed to. We know that the written text of our treaties differs from our understanding because the documents were written in a language that was foreign to our peoples, and they didn't understand that. So what does modernization mean of our treaties? We already know what they are. And And who is going to ask, okay, direct the AFN to call on the government of Canada to establish a mechanism that no legislation is passed unless it is consistent with treaty relationships and supports Canada's international treaty obligations to First Nations. So why are we asking the government of Canada to establish that mechanism?
Okay.
You know, and I want further information on that, because at this point, the way it is written, I cannot support it on behalf of Tsuut'ina Nation.
Thank you so much, Proxy Regina. We'll go over to the mover and to speak to this, understanding that the Secretary made clear the why and the how of this, and we'll also turn to National Chief if she has any further thought on the AFN role in this draft resolution. So we'll first go over to Chief Cadmus Delorme and National Chief RoseAnne Archibald, just giving you a heads up that we will be going to you after that. So Chief Cadmus Delorme, can we please unmute him to respond?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and thank you, Regina. Always great to hear your opinions and your thoughts. This is really key to your vision. I've heard you speak many times. I just wanted to start off by just responding to a couple things, and please, I don't take a position on this resolution. If it is adjusted, please, I'm just talking about the end goal. And you know, your comment, Regina, about the the way that it would be chosen. And I don't have a full recommendation on that, but I just want to explain to you from how this resolution was drafted and explained through the conversations is we understand that as a chief, I'm a rights holder chief in this country on behalf of my citizens of Cowes. There is no national treaty commissioner on the chief side. We as chiefs are our treaty representations. But in our relationship with Canada, in their house, that is where this would sit. And in Saskatchewan, the way that the treaty commissioner was chosen is it did come from a recommendation from the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations office chief, and it went right to the Prime Minister's office. So it wasn't the Indigenous Services Canada or Indian Affairs. And then the Prime Minister appointed the Saskatchewan treaty commissioner. And please, I could be a little bit gray in that area, but that is the way that it was chosen, and that is in their house. And your comment about modernization, I understand these terms are very English-wise. You know, modernization, you know, when we were talking about this, you know, the cunning of the white man is a term that was used in treaty numbers, that we would always adapt to the current generation, that our treaties would always grow with how this country would grow. So, you know, I apologize if modernization is maybe not the term, but, you know, the cunning of the white man was the discussion. And why Government of Canada to establish on number 4, I believe that was, Regina, you mentioned. You know, my only comment there, and please, I'm not taking a position, is, you know, this is in their house. This is the Crown's lead in this country is Prime Minister Trudeau. So the Queen's representative, please, I'm not trying to educate you. I understand that you know probably a lot more than I do in this. And that is why, you know, we're preparing their house to better respect our treaty objectives, our spirit and intent, and focusing on growing this moving forward. So, Madam Chair, I'm going to leave my comments there.
Thank you so much, Chief Delorme. Proxy Regina Crowchild did ask for clarification on the role of the Assembly of First Nations with the Treaty Commissioner's Office. So that hence the reason why I'm calling upon National Chief to comment at this time. So National Chief, we're looking to you at this time. So could we please have her unmuted?
Thank you very much, Roselle. The role of the AFN is really determined by resolution. So when this kind of resolution comes forth, It's because nations across Canada either want support for a concept or they want to start to grow an idea nationally. Or sometimes it's just they want support for something that's specific to their First Nation. So in terms of our role in this, we're really just the space that allows this particular kind of resolution to come forth. And it would not, as you can sort of read from the therefore be it resolved, we're there to facilitate the discussions and explore those options, but we're not there to be the house for this particular treaty commissioner's office. So it would not sit within the Assembly of First Nations as an organization. So I just want to be clear on that. The number 4 there talks about directing us to establish that mechanism so that no legislation is passed. So we're, again, advocating, bringing together voices on that particular number 4. So I hope that's clear with everyone that this is a process that would live outside of the Assembly of First Nations.
Thank you so very much, National Chief. We'll go to the next person on our speakers list, which I noted as Chief Don Miracle. And I understand you're bringing a friendly amendment.
Yes. First of all, the purpose of the treaties were not to confirm self-determination that already existed. It was simply a Crown recognition of the nationhood of the people to enter into agreements with a colonizing nation for access to land and resources. And it did establish a sacred relationship between the First Nations and the Crown, and it created obligations to First Nations in Canada. And we've always heard that the treaties are good for as long as the grass grows, the water flows, and the sun shines, and that means forever. So anything that's speaking about treaties, it has to be in perpetuity. And the reason I questioned David Lametti yesterday about the intention of the Crown with the reforms that are going on was to get the Crown out of liability. And his answer at some point, yes, that is their goal, to get out of the liability, but that's not what the treaties call for. Those obligations are in perpetuity, for as long as the grass grows, the water flows, and the sun shines. So I think we need to amend the first item 1, that it simply is, it recognized nation-to-nation agreements, that they were established a sacred treaty relationship with the First Nations who entered into treaty and the Crown, and it created obligations for the First Nations in Canada in perpetuity. So the words in perpetuity have to be added on there. And I don't like to say that we needed the treaty to recognize we had self-determination. It already existed.
So you're looking under...
it was just simply the word recognition by the parties that entered into a treaty that this was the relationship nation to nation.
Okay.
So and the other thing I see the Treaty Commission is if there's always been a stingy interpretation of the treaties or avoiding the discussion. That's been part of the politics of treaty relationships with the Crown, to avoid the discussion. And then First Nations have had to go to court, and the Supreme Court judge has said, the Crown has always had a very stingy interpretation of what the treaties mean. They mean one thing to our nation and another thing to Canada. So there isn't common agreement on another thing. That's why there's so much litigation around treaty, whether it was the treaty right to fish or to be tax exempt or to have access to education or health services. All these things are not settled to the way that First Nations would like to see them settled. And so I would say that it would be the Treaty Commissioner where the parties are not talking. The Treaty Commissioner could order the parties to at least meet and continue discussions. But I don't think there's much of a role beyond that, and maybe to be an advocate. But again, a lot of the things that are treaty related have to have the consent of the people who are the rights holders. and it's not pan-Indian or pan-Canadian. The rights holders are specific groups of Indigenous people in the country. And so I think I'd like to see the resolution, recognize those points. Thank you.
My apologies, please remain here, Chief Miracle, because I was trying to find what number 1 you were referring to. Was it the number I don't?
Therefore, it be resolved.
Can you just repeat what you had indicated? Just make sure that
it recognized that First Nations entered into nation-to-nation agreements. Now, Canada takes the view that these treaties are simply domestic agreements, that it doesn't have any international flavor. So I don't know how can you just that they were nation-to-nation agreements.
So you're
and
looking.
And that it created obligations for First Nations in Canada in perpetuity.
Okay, so the full sentence, can you read it out loud? Because you're giving me an explanation plus the wording, and my apologies. I want to make sure that our resolutions committee is capturing this exactly. I can't peer over their shoulder and look. I'm also writing it down. So can you repeat what you'd like the full amendment, please?
Okay. Be it resolved that the treaties recognized nation-to-nation agreements equal to states, establish a sacred relationship between First Nations and the Crown, and created obligations for First Nations in Canada in perpetuity.
Great. Just going to go over to resolutions, and I see it posted here. So I'm going to read it out loud, what was just posted. Oh, we got another update coming in. Just bear with us. Thank you so much for your patience. While we're waiting for that, I'll just indicate that for the purposes of our agenda, we have got the technical glitch looked after for going back to the plenary session led by National Chief RoseAnne Archibald on the strategic direction, vision, value, mission, and goals. So what I have captured here is for number 1. So therefore be it resolved, 1, affirm that treaties recognize nation-to-nation agreements equal to states, establish a sacred treaty relationship between First Nations and the Crown, and create obligations for First Nations and Canada in perpetuity. Is that correct, Chief Miracle?
That's correct.
Perfect. So as we have confirmation that is correct, we'll put that friendly amendment into the chat, please, to our technicians. So just to put that friendly amendment in the chat. I'll read it again for those who do not have access to the chat, for those who are in the webinar observer room. So the friendly amendment is affirm that treaties recognize nation-to-nation agreements equal to states, comma, establish a sacred treaty relationship between First Nations and the Crown, comma, and create obligations for First Nations and Canada in perpetuity, period. That is the friendly amendment for number 1. I'm going to go now back to our mover, Chief Cadmus Delorme, to see if he is amenable to this friendly amendment. Chief Delorme?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Thank you, Chief. I agree with what was recommended.
Great, thank you so much. We'll go over to Grand Chief Benedict for our seconder to see that he also accepts the amendment.
Yes, I agree to the amendment.
Stretchum, thank you so much. Now we will now go on to our next speaker on list, which is Chief Roberta Joseph.
Good morning, everyone. I appreciate the discussion on this resolution. I'm from Truniquichin in Dawson City, Yukon, and in the Yukon we have the largest number of modern treaty and self-governing First Nations. In Canada, we have 11 self-governing First Nations, and so quite often modern treaties are left out of the discussions, or some other matters are not taken into consideration, such as we don't have reserves here or in Northwest Territories. And so I'm just wondering if this resolution takes into consideration modern treaty First Nations, because in terms of some of the challenges that we have is implementing all that we negotiated, and it's taking a very long time. And so we see this avenue too that may be beneficial to us in terms of developing a mandate under the commission to for implementation of modern treaty agreements. Masito.
So it's a comment from Chief Roberta Joseph about inclusion of these modern day treaties and the realities for our relatives to the north. I'm going to turn back to you, Chief Cadmus DeLorme, if you have any comments to that. Also, Chief Joseph, if there's any friendly amendments or any language that you wish to think about in here, or that is also an option. But I'll turn first to Chief DeLorme at this time.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief Roberta. I'm a numbered treaties rights holder, and I would never want to go outside my goalpost to say, my comment is there are relationships, crown relationships in this country, and we have existed since time immemorial. And this resolution is to strengthen the colonial house in how they now have to and must interpret the spirit and intent and the treaties, from the numbered treaties to the wampum belt to the modern treaties. And so I thinking, very optimistic on this office, and that's as far as I can answer, Chief Roberta. This office would be for the colonial house to better respect us in our relationship in crown relations.
Helps if I unmute myself. Yes. So pardon me. John Martin, can you please unmute John Martin, please identify yourself and the community you're representing. Thank you so much.
Chief John Martin, from the Giskabia First Nation and unceded Mi'kmaq Territory. I just want to speak to the resolution. I'm quite uncomfortable with the resolution as it is. I come from a region where we have pre-Confederation treaties, and as it states in the beginning of the resolution, these are treaties that are very sacred to us. And I'm a bit concerned when we're talking about modernization of treaties. We've seen what happened when we ended up in court with Marshall. Yes, we gained quite a bit, but I do also believe that the government of Canada came back with Marshall II, imposed its authority and restricted, and as a result, we have certain situations in Mi'kmaq Territory, which people are still fighting for their rights, and recognition. So I have some concern when we're talking about modernization of these treaties without any consideration for the relationship that we had in the signing of the pre-Confederation treaties. It was not a domestic relationship. It was a relationship with the Crown overseas, and there was a long-standing relationship back and forth. Those are international covenants that I believe in, and I think that Canada's purpose here is always to domesticate our treaties. They're a colonial authority, and it has been mentioned a number of times. We're in a colonial house; it's their house. and I'm very uncomfortable in their house without having some kinds of international inclusion to assure that Canada does respect, for one, the United Nations Declaration, and on the other hand, respect the spirit and intent of our treaties, which are not domestic treaties. They weren't signed with Canada. They were signed with the Crown. And there was the recognition of our sovereignty over our territories. So I think those are important aspects of any office that's established with Canada. To me, there has to be protection there for pre-Confederation treaties, protection for the relationship that we had with the Crown at an international level, international status. I do not trust Canada. I live in the province of Quebec, the 7th district, the northern part of the 7th district of Mi'kmaq. And in Quebec, the Quebec government has absolutely no respect for Aboriginal and Aboriginal rights and our inherent rights on this territory. And Canada has failed us in terms of protecting our rights in this region.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Martin. Thank you so very much for those comments at this time. Duly noting your position. We're going to go now to Chief David Munoz. Can we please have him unmuted?
Okay. Hi.
Oh, somebody around you has their Zoom on as well. That's what creates the echo. So we just take a moment to get everybody else around you muted, and then we'll go back to you. Chief Munoz, we'll unmute you again. Try that.
All right.
Somebody's still unmuted in your area.
Yeah, we have we're in a hall here, so
That's better now. Please proceed.
Thank you, and I greet you from Treaty 1 territory. My nation is Bibitsumak, and Cross Lake is also known as it's known. And I represent about we're about 10,000 strong band membership, and we belong to the Treaty 5 nation. I guess my question is that first of all, I had some issues with respect to the number of people that are participating in discussing this very important topic called Treaty 5. I mean, Treaty.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what just happened. Can we, Chief Dean Sayers? I'm not sure what happened there. Chief Dean Sayers, we will go back to Chief Dean Sayers. My apologies. I don't know if it was a technical issue on your end or my end. I understand that we have an issue with Chief Dean Sayers. We will go back to Chief Dean Sayers. There's a technical issue. It looks like it's on his end from what I can see. We'll go over to Gima Brent Bisayon, and I'm sorry if I said that wrong. I look forward to being corrected. So we will, so again, we'll go to Chief Sayers right after. So please, Gima, we'll go to you now. If you could please unmute yourself. Thank you. And tell me how to say your last name, please.
Hi, honey. It's Brent Bisayon.
Bisayon, thank you.
Bisayon. If you say with the French, say with a French accent, it works. I'm the Chief of Serpentine First Nation, and I do have a little bit of some issues with how this resolution is worded. I do want to just make the point of Chief Scott McLeod of Nipissing also raised the issue of we need to take the word treaty out of this and just call it Crown relations. This cannot water down or undermine the work of treaty organizations are currently doing. And that was one of my issues is, there's a lot of work going on right now with the Robinson Huron Treaty Group. And I don't want a national or an umbrella body to take away from that work or cause the federal government to take away our voice when we are trying to advocate for ourselves as treaty nations. And so, if we could perhaps, again, change it how this is worded, but taking treaty out of it. And I understand the whole purpose for it, but I do have some fears around, again, the wording around modernization of treaties and things. I just want the Canadian government to honor the treaties that we have already. I don't want us to keep trying to create new organizations or new bodies in order to continually fight this when we should just have it done right from the start. So I just want to make those points that, I can't support this until treaties taken completely out of it, and we're just looking at relationships with the Crown at an AFN level and keeping it down here, keeping treaty at the local level. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And my apologies to Chief Muñoz. I was calling out for Chief Sayers, who'd been dropped. It was Chief Muñoz who was dropped. We're going to go back over to Chief Muñoz in the Manitoba caucus. Again, my apologies, pardon me, Chief Sayers, for that confusion. We're going to go back to Chief Muñoz where we had the issue. And Chief Muñoz, we're back here. So,
Hello.
hello.
Hi. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. We completely understand and appreciate the coordination the best as we can in this virtual realm. Thank you as well for your patience. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. No, my concern was that we had a fair low turnout in terms of discussing this very important topic. But I understand that it's everybody's been given notice to attend and participate in the discussions, and everybody's aware of the assembly that's occurring, the special assembly, and it would be nice to have as many as we could to participate on here. Okay, I guess one of the things I wanted to do, maybe direct to the movers and the seconders, and also is that, there were some concerns I had that when you're directing the AFN to facilitate the dialogue among First Nations and establishing a Treaty Commission's office, and on the next line, you're directing, calling on the government of Canada to establish a Treaty Commission's office already. So, I don't know how fast that can work, going from one we're trying to communicate with the First Nations and the Treaty Nations, and then on a second level, on a second thing, you're calling on the government to establish treaty office, and you haven't got that mandate yet. You're just facilitating something. And maybe that's something that needs to be reworded to state that, you are facilitating discussions among treaty nations to establish your treaty office. And once that is done, then you will be calling on the government of Canada to establish such office. But I also wanted to maybe state that maybe as part of the answers that for the direct, to add on that direct AFN to hold a national conference specifically on treaties and the establishment of a Treaty Commission's office nationally. That would be the intent is one. But the other ones that I know on line number 7, it says also it gives us protections there that this process would not be affecting each individual First Nations. But I'm thinking about opting in, opting out process to allow each nation that belongs to the treaty the options in terms of what they're trying to do. And the call on the government to recognize that the locus of power, authority, and control rests with each individual treaty nation, and that they determine whether they participate in the implementation process of the treaty or not, and that this will not abrogate or derogate from that treaty nation from negotiating directly with the Crown as represented by Canada. Those are my suggestions that they must be included. And if it's so, those changes can be made, I will support the resolution. But as it stands right now, I cannot support it. Thank you. Thank you. So what I hear you saying, Chief Muñoz, before you step away, is you are proposing a friendly amendment. You indicated, I believe it was under the therefore be it resolved 0.7. Is that correct? Yes. And can you kindly just repeat that, what you're looking to change in 0.7, so our resolution committee can capture it, we can read it to the record, ensure that we got it right. Okay, so I'm proposing that along with number 7, that we state that call on the government to recognize that the locus and power authority and control rests with each individual First Nations or treaty First Nation, that they determine whether they participate in the implementation process or not, and this will not abrogate or derogate from the treaty nation from negotiating directly with the Crown as represented by Canada.
So you're looking for that addition to 7, or is it a bumping into 8 and make number 8 number 9?
Yes. Bumping it to number 8. Yeah.
Okay, so that would be what you're proposing, and if you could just repeat it one more time, just so we have it for the resolution committee. So the new proposed number 8 would be what you're going to read out in just a minute, and what is currently number 8 will become number 9. So again, one more time, thank you for your patience.
Okay, I'll repeat it. Again, this is for the purpose of that there's not enough participation from the nations. So this way, it gives that assurance that they're not being overlooked or we're not overstepping their authority and power and control, right? So this is what it's going to say. Call on government of Canada to recognize that the locus of power, authority, and control rest with each individual treaty First Nations, and that they determine whether they participate in the implementation process or not, and that this will not abrogate or derogate from that treaty nation from negotiating directly with the Crown as represented by Canada.
Thank you so much, Chief Munoz. I'm just going to look to your resolution committee to confirm that. We're going to read that. Oh, going to keep you by the microphone, Chief Munoz. We're going to just wait for our resolution committee to provide the wording for me, which we'll read to the record, get a confirmation. Once we get that, we will then post in the chat. Thank you so much, everybody. And again, a gentle reminder that after this, thank you for your understanding about our technical issues this morning. We will be going back to the plenary session with National Chief RoseAnne Archibald on strategic direction, vision, values, missions, and goals, and that will be led by my co-chair, Adam Vidler. So Adam, just a gentle note to you, and I know for our technical folks to make sure that we have everything lined up for National Chief's recording as well as for the slides.
Hi, Co-Chair Russell. I just wanted to inform you that the technical team is ready to proceed with the National Chief's presentation, if that's the question, so we can proceed on that.
Great. We still have one more speaker on our list on this resolution number 3. And for that, to my knowledge, I'm just going to double check. I see Proxy Crowchild wishes to speak again. We'll go back to her. We also need to check in with our mover and seconder on the amendment that has just been proposed. And we then hopefully be getting to a vote. So we have some time yet.
Chief Sayers here as well before Chief Crowchild. I just wanted to reserve a spot when she's finished her comment to make a comment as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chief Sayers. I did have you noted. Thank you. Okay. So we have here the amendment. So the new number 8, which means the current number 8 will be number 9. Just Call on the Government of Canada, so the newly proposed number 8 is call on the Government of Canada to recognize that the locus of power, comma, authority and control rests with each individual Treaty First Nations, and they determine whether they participate in this process or not, comma, and their participation will not abrogate or derogate from the treaty nation as it negotiates directly with the Crown. So turning to you, Chief Munoz, to ensure that is as you stated, to confirm that, please. Can we make sure that the Manitoba Caucus room is unmuted, and Chief Munoz will look for your confirmation.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I can confirm that's what
Perfect.
the wording is. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So we'll post that into the chat right now. Call on the Government of Canada to recognize the locus of power, authority, and control rests with each individual Treaty First Nations, and they determine whether they participate in this process or not. And their participation will not abrogate or derogate from the treaty nation as it negotiates directly with the Crown. I'm going to go now to the mover, Chief Cadmus DeLorme, followed by our seconder, Chief Benedict. So Chief Cadmus DeLorme.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief Munoz. I'm good with the changes.
Great, thank you so much. So that's a newly addition of number 8 and previous number 8 being bumped down to number 9. Grand Chief Benedict, seconder.
I am as agreeable as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now we'll go to Chief Sayers. Chief Dean Sayers, can I please have Chief Dean Sayers unmuted? And the floor is yours, Chief Sayers. And my apologies and thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Miigwech, no problem at all. Ogaman, Namanagojin Goyak, Chief Dean Sayers from Gachigame, Lake Superior, Baoting, at the center of North America here in south central Ontario and northeastern Ontario. Anyway, regardless, thank you for the efforts that are being made to move resolution forward with regards to the relationship that we have with the Crown, and that to some degree is being held by Canada today. I have some reservations. I am the chief of Batchewana First Nation, but I think just as important, or maybe even more important, is that I am currently sitting at the table periodically with Canada, and the discussions are happening in regards to the promises that were made to my people historically in regards to agreements and treaties. And there has been, for reference, some positive movements there. And I'm just not comfortable in providing support by way of this resolution to this precarious interaction that we are having with Canada at this point. And the 21 chiefs have been fairly successful in moving the yardstick as far as we're concerned on a number of fronts. And we have to be mindful of that. And there are just too many unknowns. I recognize the efforts that are being made from various chiefs across the country. However, I'm still not at the point of comfort. So I'm going to have to oppose the resolution. Just as well, if you recall, this similar discussion happened over the course of the last probably 15 years, where we've periodically had discussions around a treaty commission. And we've never really landed in a place of comfort as far as a collective is concerned. And there was some comfort with a treaty commissioner providing probably public awareness and education, but the delicate nature of the relationship really wasn't able to be captured within the confines of historical resolutions. And I'm still not finding that comfort today. So I'm, as a treaty chief, I'm going to have to oppose the resolution today. But I do appreciate the discussion and the efforts, and it does bring to light. And I'm hoping that the media does hear the discussion that we have. And I really appreciate the discussions as well that I've had with Canadians and their support for our unresolved promises. And I appreciate the children who have brought to light the historic blemish on Canada and the Crown with the residential school the discovery and them allowing themselves to be discovered to help move our place in Canada and more closer to its rightful placement in the way that we manage these lands and our peoples as Indigenous sovereign people. So anyway, thank you all. I will be registering and I would like it noted for the record that I am in opposition. Thank you much.
Chief Dean Sayers will now go to Regina Crowchild.
Oh, thank you. I just want to be put on the record that Tsuut'ina Nation is not in favor of this resolution, because certainly the organizations have no business in our treaty relationship with the Crown, and there's no way we would risk getting Canada to domesticate our treaties, because they're not domestic treaties, they're international treaties. So I just want to lay that on the floor and be it recorded that Tsuut'ina Nation is not in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Proxy Regina Crowchild. We'll now go to Chief Dylan White Duck.
Hey, Kwekakina, fellow chiefs and proxies and everyone who's joining here today. I applaud the work that's going on. I applaud the chiefs and that are trying to get this motion and this resolution passed. First and foremost, the Algonquin Nation has never surrendered or unceded or on unceded territory. The whole modern day treaty process that we've experienced for the past 30 years has been a burden on our nation. And I'd hate to see this new commissioner's office become an ally for non-recognized non-status individuals or groups to take upon and infringe on your territories. We're seeing it here from our nation, exploiting our territories on the other side of the river of Ontario. As we all know, we didn't have a collective Ontario or Quebec approach. Our territory is vast and large. So we're seeing this from a modern day process. And for me and for my point of view, it's a very, I'm taking caution on this resolution. And if this process goes through and it does pass, I would hate to see other nations and communities fall into the trap and the mindset of having non-recognized, non-status organizations and groups, infringe upon your territory and your treaties. So that's my concern. And for my part, I'm opposed to it, and I support the other chiefs who are opposed to it as well. Miigwech, thank you.
Miigwech, Chief White Duck. Seeing no further hands up at this time, we will, I see two more hands. One more hand that just went up. Just looking for that hand. Ogima Jason Henry, please.
I'd like the record to state that Kettle Stony Point stands opposed as well.
Thank you so very much. As we're now just getting into a for and against on this, we're going to call question and proceed to a vote. So I'm asking the technician to now bring up the poll for this draft resolution number 3, creation of a National Treaty Commissioner's Office. So again, to our technician to please pull up the poll for draft resolution number 3. Thank you so much. And it's a single answer question, and we're reminding everybody to please use your device. The creation of a National Treaty Commissioner's Office. Thank you, everybody, for this fulsome discussion. As I had indicated, right after this vote, we're going to proceed back to the plenary. Just one tiny second. Just to remind everybody that we are going to, right after this vote is concluded, we are going to go back to the plenary session with National Chief RoseAnne Archibald on the strategic direction, vision, values, and mission and goals. And that will be led by my co-chair, Adam Fiddler. So we're going to continue to keep this poll open. Just a reminder that we will provide the final tally at the end of the day, as we also need to ensure that we're including all aspects, because we do also have, to my understanding, participation on the phone lines.